What is up, everybody? This is the Thursday NFL show on Insiders TV, and boy, do we have a show for you today. With us today, Davis Maddock at the controls, where he likes to be. Late round QB from numberfire.com and Drew Dinkmeyer from Roto Experts does a daily fantasy rundown. Guys, welcome to Insiders TV, and I hope that there will be some spirited debate today.
I'm sure there will be.
Oh, I think you can count on that.
Davis, I've got some medals for you if we can do this, and I don't want you to throw them away.
I will throw away all medals because if I kept every trophy in my life that I've ever accumulated, I wouldn't have a room because it would just be full of trophies.
Here we go. That's what I want. These are
Dude,
the
what is
things.
this outfit that you have on right now, Davis?
It's my Swaggy P jersey. The Lakers are undefeated with him active, and this is the beanie that I wore on campus today.
All right. So, and the monster drink. So, good start. All right.
No, dude. Tea.
Oh, tea.
T.
It's a reasonable half and half. Okay, so let's go ahead and edit this shot since JJ just decided to quit on us. And,
Already lost JJ to Christian Mingle.
I'm sure he's gonna hate missing out on some pretty strong takes as far as where we're gonna go next, and that is, where do you think, Davis?
I don't know. Let's just get it out of the way. Let's just get it. Let's just get Charles Johnson out of the way. Let's just do it. He's a thing. If Jarius Wright and Greg Jennings are not active, like if they're just straight, like not limited, like not playing some snaps, like if they just don't play, Charles Johnson is the best wide receiver value on the board. He's better than Kenny Stills. He's better than Justin Hunter. He just is a better play than those guys. I just don't know. I just don't know how this has become a hot take. Like athletically, he's like a carbon copy of Dez Bryant. He had a better collegiate market share than Marcus Colston, better collegiate market share than Miles Austin, better collegiate market share than Brian Quick. Norv Turner was super complimentary of him when he came in and played out of position last week for Wright. He played in the slot last week, which is not his natural position, and Norv Turner was super complimentary of him. And like I don't know how this became a hot take. Honestly,
Davis,
Better college market share than Justin Hunter and Stephen Hill.
that is why it's a hot take.
Stephen Hill's market share is like undefeated.
So that's why it's a thing, Davis, is because these other wide receivers, and that is the whole reason for Drew's idea for the boy who cried touchdown.
Well, if someone can come up with a formula that is 100% predictive all the time, I would love to have access to that formula.
Right, but I just want you to understand like why it's a deal, like why it is a thing. Is because
I don't know, like me saying Mike Evans over Calvin Johnson this week is like a way hotter take than saying Charles Johnson over Kenny Stills.
So we're talking Charles Johnson. Sorry, I got cut off.
Yes.
Hey, JJ.
Yeah. Did you expect anything else?
No, actually, this is exactly the conversation that I expected to have whenever I came back.
I do want to give
Charles Johnson or Calvin Johnson, JJ.
Charles, easily.
It's a discussion at least. Like, you at least have to have the discussion.
What, Charles or Calvin?
No. I mean, I don't really think that, but, like, I do think that there is some sort of, like, there's legitimately kickback to the idea that big wide receivers are better at football this year. Like, that's a real thought that people are having. Like, I saw today a bunch of, supposed NFL analysts said they would rather have Odell Beckham than Mike Evans, which is probably the least defensible take of all time.
But I think at the same time, though, you can't ignore what a guy like Beckham's doing right now.
No, Beckham's been very good. He has not been as good as Mike Evans.
No, Mike Evans has been the best rookie wide receiver this year.
Yeah. Like, there are a whole host of rookie wide receivers who are performing. And this is another thing that's been hard this year to adjust, is that this is not even close. We have no comparison of what the rookie wide receivers are doing this year. The closest comparison would be like when AJ Green and Julio Jones were like low-end wide receiver twos. Yeah. This year we have rookie wide receivers who are high-end wide receiver ones, who are mid-tier wide receiver twos. Like 10 rookie wide receivers have been usable for fantasy this year. There is no historical comparison for that, like, ever, which is insane. Right. Like, so on a week-to-week basis, it's hard for me to be like, like this is. I loved Mike Evans coming out of college. This is my first week writing him up, just because like I'm very much like you have to demonstrate that it is like that your success is sustainable for me to consider you as an option for fantasy.
Well, that's why a lot of the pricing on them, like on FanDuel especially, has been pretty consistent because they feel the same way that we all feel. It's difficult to see them perform so well one week and just assume that production is going to keep up, but it has, and that's just not normal.
Yeah, I agree. Let's start it out with this. Mike Evans ranks where for you as a wide receiver play this week, assuming that like the weather stuff in Chicago right now clears up, JJ?
I'd probably put him. I mean, if it like assuming perfect weather, I'd probably put him top 5 or 6.
Yeah, because like for me, I have him over everybody but Evans. Like not in rankings, not like 1 through 10 rankings, but in terms of like wide receivers I'm going to have exposure to, he's number 2 for me behind Demarius right now. So, assuming playable weather.
So you would play him. You like him more than Jordy, for instance?
Yeah, because I really like. Obviously, Jordy is an incredible player and is definitely going to have at least a 70-yard touchdown in that game. Might be his only reception though. Like real chance that.
You mean like the last time they played Minnesota?
Did that happen?
Yeah, that exact.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So like Rodgers is a mortal lock for 3 touchdowns. At least one of them is going to go to a player you've never heard of. One of them is going to go to Randall Cobb because all Randall Cobb does is score touchdowns. And then you just kind of have to figure out who is going to catch that third one.
Yeah.
And if Minnesota keeps it close, then yeah, Rodgers is going to throw 6.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. It would be silly for anyone to really fault you for being high on Mike Evans right now.
Yeah. I think the real conversation we need to have is Josh Gordon, though. That's what everyone wants to talk about. And I wrote, I think, like 1,000 words in my column about what I think about Gordon this week. But I'm gonna open it up with Drew to give the pragmatic take, and then I'll let JJ be even more pragmatic, and then I'll just burn all of that down with a flamethrower.
So the pragmatic take is just to have some concerns over a couple different key factors because there's things that we need to talk about with it. The first being conditioning. Do we have any idea that he's going to be ready to play 100% of the snaps right away? I know they're talking about like pitch counts and practices and stuff like that, but we don't know how that's going to translate to the game. I'm not saying that he necessarily will for sure not play 100% of snaps, but I think it's a reasonable expectation to say there's going to be some sort of adjustment period conditioning-wise. I think there's also an adjustment period to game speed. Like it's not the same like going out in your backyard and playing catch, which is basically what Gordon has been limited to for 3 months, and coming in and then getting 2 or 3 days of practice and then going right into a game. The third component is Desmond Trufant's a good corner, and they're talking about Trufant shadowing him. He's top 10 in Pro Football Focus coverage rankings this week. So while, yes, Atlanta's defense is terrible, that individual matchup isn't as easy as the rest of the defense. And then the fourth thing is just volume. Like we're evaluating Josh Gordon based on immense volume from last season that we just don't know what the volume is going to be like this year. So, for me, am I going to pay Josh Gordon's price tag from last year with all of those unknowns? Probably not in my cash games. Definitely take a chance in tournaments. Am I going to pay a more depressed price tag for the shot at Josh Gordon of last year? Yeah, I'm more open to doing that in cash games, but I wouldn't go as far as to say he's a must play. He's no Alfred Blue.
Right.
He's no Alfred Blue. Immortal words.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, to what Drew said, because I agree completely, we have to understand that, number one, and to Drew's point about volume, like if Josh Gordon were to get the same target share that he did last year in that offense, he would get like 3 fewer targets per game, which is really significant. But the other thing to understand too is that they're going to attack Atlanta on the ground, not only because Mike Pettin hates fantasy football, but because that's where Atlanta
Dude, Mike Pettin hates points, bro.
Well, sure, but at the same, that's how you attack Atlanta. Period. I understand their secondary is horrible, but their rush defense is even worse. And I think that's what Cleveland has done all season long. The other thing too, with the pitch count thing with Josh Gordon, people are saying, don't listen to Mike Pettin and what. Mike Pettin's been kind of a straight shooter this year. Like he's pretty. I understand that like reports early in the week of how they're going to use their running backs haven't necessarily translated to what's gone on in the football field. But like all the stuff with like Hoyer and Manziel before the season started, like Pettin was pretty straight up with it. So I think Gordon will be on some sort of snap count, and that's fine. He's still probably going to be usable in some way, but like Drew said, like in cash games, it's still a crazy risk. Like it's just
here's the other part of that is Cleveland's got a team total of 21.75 or so, like 22 points, and everyone's going to want to use Crowell because he's super cheap, and he started last week. He didn't get removed after the fumble. He's got this great matchup against Atlanta. Do you want to have two Browns in your lineup on a team total of 22?
But that argument is mostly hypothetical and doesn't pay attention to the way that football games actually play out, and the fact that their price tag makes it viable. Even if neither one of them score a touchdown on DraftKings, the way their price tag works out, they could both not kill your team.
But you're
like last week.
Go ahead.
Last week, I rostered Jeremy Hill and AJ Green, which was literally almost the exact same situation. Like a not positive game script, bad defense, yada yada yada, and it worked out with only one touchdown between the two of them because they were both at what I thought were depressed price points. I think if I had to choose between the two of them, you made me choose one of them. I would choose Crowell because Atlanta is so bad, and there are some workload concerns with him, but the fact that Terrence West has been like a game day inactive while he was healthy and stuff like that indicate that the coaching staff likes Crowell more. He's had 4 carries inside the 10-yard line this season. 3 of them turned into touchdowns. He's very effective. So on Gordon, I think on FanDuel, it's just I don't really see the necessity in it. I feel like with the way their wide receivers are priced, it makes more sense to just move some dollars around and play Mike Evans or whatever instead. On DraftKings, I just think that you have to look at the rarefied air that he found himself in as a second-year player, and you just have to understand that even on a pitch count, he's the best wide receiver that team has. And Mike Pettin has said stuff about pitch count, but then he's also not been consistent with it, saying, well, I want to play him 75 snaps. And, Hoyer is out there with a new Christmas toy. So I think reading into any of that stuff is just we want to get information from it, but I'm not certain we're learning anything viable from what he's saying to the media. So I think looking at it holistically, we have to assume he'll play between 50 to 70% of the snaps. Atlanta has a really bad pass defense. Desmond Trufant is a good corner, not a great shutdown corner. You have to assume Gordon will probably move around the formation some the way that they used Hawkins, who basically played the Josh Gordon role in this offense, which is very hilarious to me. And I think it depends on how you play fantasy football. If you embrace volatility for those mid-range salary type guys, I think Gordon is an excellent play because he's Josh Gordon and he's an incredibly talented football player who can easily score 2 touchdowns in this game. And I mean, remember, we were in a similar situation last year against the Vikings where he came back after, 2 weeks off instead of 3 months, and he was amazing. And that was the lowest price point he was available at all season long. And I'm using him on DraftKings, but I do acknowledge that your approach is more pragmatic and probably the correct process-wise.
Well, I think the one thing to remember too, because you're going to use him on DraftKings if you're going to use him. And when you look at who else is around him at that price point, there is some risk associated with all of those wide receivers. So if your risk with Josh Gordon, your risk with Josh Gordon isn't a talent one or isn't it's strictly what we talked about. It's the same kind of risk that you would get from those other players because it's pretty much volume driven, right? So, I do understand it more on DraftKings just because of the cost associated with using a different wide receiver as opposed to him.
So the name that's getting thrown around in chat, and this is where I think it gets interesting from a lineup construction process because I know talking to you earlier, Davis, you're really high on Gronk and you want to use Gronk everywhere. If you use Gronk on DraftKings, your budget's pretty tight, and so you're gonna need some really cheap options, which means you probably can't do both of Josh Gordon and Sammy Watkins. You might be able to. I don't know, but
I'm not playing Sammy Watkins until I know they're actually playing a game.
That'll be interesting.
But they're definitely going to. I mean, what are the chances that they're not going to play? They've already announced that they're not going to play in Buffalo.
Well,
Right.
They might play on Tuesday. They might play on Wednesday. Like, we don't have an official announcement yet.
Right.
Okay, but assuming they play, because we'll likely get that information before Sunday.
I like Watkins more than Gordon if they play.
Okay.
Like a favorable.
Okay, so if you were forced to choose between the two, that would be the route you take. And that's the way that I feel.
I don't even think that's a conversation. Like Watkins.
I don't think it is either.
Yeah. Like, for everyone, what everyone thinks, I think about Watkins, he's been transcendent in good matchups, which it is against these Jets cornerbacks.
Right, he killed them last time out.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like
that's where I'm at too. And then so it gets tougher if you want to pay up for one of like Gronk or Demaryius. It gets really tough to fit both those guys in.
Well, not if you're doing what I'm doing.
Oh boy,
here we go.
I'm Sanchez, bro. I'm franchised up. Like I think he's an incredible cash game play.
Okay, but even with Sanchez, do you not have an expensive running back?
You know I hate running backs.
I know, but like, so I assume you're not playing
Sanchez.
Charles at 7,900.
Sanchez and Al, and you can do whatever you want.
I don't think you can do whatever you want.
I don't think that's true. You have to have another cheap running back in there too.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like Trey Mason. I like Trent Richardson. I think McKinnon is an option. Like, I think this is very much a week for cheap running backs, and I think every week is a cheap.
So you'd rather pay up for like Gronk or Demaryius over DeMarco at 8,500.
Yes.
Okay, and Charles at 7,900 if you're paying Thursday.
I have no idea what to do because a lot of my lineups are coming down. Like, are the Bills going to play like in an okay weather environment? Is Jarius Wright and going to sit out? I'm seeing Thursday night contest out as of right now.
No, but on DraftKings, you obviously can save those decisions later on.
Yeah. I haven't bought into any games yet. I will say that if I am using Charles, like, yeah, I would say maybe to get some diversity, I would go down from Gronk to Fleener if I do end up playing on Thursday night.
Okay, so you choose Gordon ahead of Gronk then in that scenario.
Yeah, with the savings, like I feel like there's a pretty significant difference in the cap. And honestly, I don't really have an opinion on what to do with Gordon right now. Like I spent so long looking up numbers, and I just ended up drooling at how good he was last year. But they also had the widest pass-to-run ratio of any team in the league last year, and that's hard for me to say, oh, that's North Turner, or it was because Willis McGahee was so bad, or because Gordon was so good. Like, because there's been a lot of turnover, it's hard to diagnose. And the fact of the matter is we just don't know, and that's really frustrating.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, totally agree. So let's transition to Gronk, because I think it's not an unusual take for you because you always love Gronk. But I do think most people are going to look at the matchups and think, well, Detroit's a really good defense. They're going to think Jimmy Graham's a little bit cheaper. They're going to think, there's some values at the tight end position. There's Martellus Bennett at 4,000 on DraftKings. There's Kobe Fleener at 5,400 on FanDuel. Like, there's other options out there at tight end. And I know you're just all on the Gronk train. So talk me through the Gronk decision.
Well, matchup-wise, it makes sense, right? Like, okay, put 8 in the box to stop Jonas Gray. Then Gronk is going to go out there and destroy you. Detroit has the number one defense by adjusted DVOA. Like, they have the best defense in football. But Vegas thinks that the Patriots are going to score 28 points. So that would seem to indicate to me that Vegas is not incredibly worried about the Patriots being able to move the ball and score points. And if you were projecting this matchup in terms of points, how would you think that replacement level running back who tore his ACL a year ago is going to do against the best defense in football? Probably not super great. But if you're projecting how Rob Gronkowski is going to do, I'm not sure matchups matter to him. Like, if the Vegas point total is there for the Patriots, then Gronkowski is going to do things. Like, he literally is, you can't tackle him. Like, I don't know what a defense is supposed to do with that guy.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that, well, number one, I don't think the Patriots are going to enter their game against Detroit and say we're going to run Jonas Gray. I think that the opposite's going to happen. But I do think because this is a Vereen week for sure, just to throw it out there. But
yeah, it is.
The thing with Gronk and with Detroit in that matchup is that you actually can attack the middle of the field against them, and that's why a lot of tight ends have performed a lot better against Detroit than wide receivers have this year. The wide receivers are awful against Detroit in general, which is why the matchup doesn't necessarily scare me as much with Gronk this week, and I do think that he is matchup proof, obviously. But I think the big question mark, which is what you and I kind of were DMing about today, Davis, is it's basically like I can understand a Gronk lineup construction when you're using Mark Sanchez, but for those people who are going the luck train, it's almost impossible to use Rob Gronkowski confidently and have your lineup look and feel good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. I just don't know how anyone could ever feel uncomfortable using Gronkowski. For whatever it's worth, Football Outsiders has Detroit as the 20th ranked defense against the tight end for fantasy points. So
it's the relative comfort of Sanchez, Gronkowski, Luck versus cheaper tight end. That's what the discussion.
Everyone else feels more comfortable with Luck than I do too.
So let's walk us through that. Walk us through Luck.
To me, a lot of his fantasy greatness has been derived from volume. And yeah, he could absolutely go out there and just huck 40 times against the Jets anyways, because T-Rich isn't going to grind the change out, which was the point that you made to me. Or he could throw 20 times. It just feels like
why would he throw 20 times? How? So here's the thing that gets a little bit confusing for me. Your Gronk opinion is built on this Vegas total of 28 for New England.
It's also built. That's how what Gronkowski does every single week.
Sure, but that's how New England gets to 28. How does Indianapolis get to 32.5 without Andrew Luck? How does that happen?
Definitely some Bortles turnovers. I think you and I both agree that Trent Richardson is a good play this week. I agree with you that the total is in Luck's favor. I just don't know how they score points. It's going to be a totally different offense. They're losing 20% of their.
So you don't think the Vegas total is indicative of what you're expecting them to do?
No, I think the Vegas total is indicative. I don't know how they get to those points. Their offense lost 20% market share of where their targets went with Ahmad Bradshaw and Dwayne Allen out of the lineup. I think Bortles turns the ball over a lot. It's hard to project defensive touchdowns, but that's certainly the sort of thing that happens when you have a quarterback with a 6 YPA. There are a lot of variables in this game that I don't understand. Dan Herron is going to be a game day active, likely for the Colts. He's actually a very talented runner. There were a couple pieces on RotoViz about him. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get run in the second half. I'm never going to say that Luck isn't a good play. I feel a lot safer with Sanchez and Gronkowski than I do with Luck and tight end X, because tight end X is always a gamble because everything that we judge them on is really small sample sizes. How many times has Jordan Reed or Larry Donnell or Owen Daniels or Heath Miller been in an excellent matchup with the market share favored to go their way, and then they just don't perform because they're tight ends and they see such tiny market shares? What we're going off of with Coby Fleener is 40 snaps against the Patriots last week. That's why people think he's a good play, is 40 snaps that they saw on an island game where he looked really good.
I mean, he's been a tight end.
Right, and I
Go ahead, Drew.
Go ahead, Drew. Okay, so I would say I agree with all that. The only thing that's very confusing to me is using part of your reasoning being the New England total from Vegas believing that New England will score, and then kind of throwing it out with Luck, who represents 88% of the Colts' offensive touchdowns this year. So
the Colts are going to put up points.
Right, and most likely, based on history, it's going to be Andrew Luck. His prop line is going to be over under 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean the last time he played Jacksonville earlier this year, they blew them out. It's 44-17 final. Andrew Luck was the number 1 quarterback that week, and it's not surprising that he was the number 1 quarterback that week either. I just think in cash games, and it's funny that we're in this situation because I understand the predictability aspect of quarterback over tight end. I mean, that is stuff that I study every day and look at every day. It's just that the security that you have with Andrew Luck, especially even though Gronk's matchup isn't it's not bad, but it's not phenomenal either. I think that there's still some concern in general that Gronk could easily do what he did last week, and if he does what he did last week, that's not a plus play for you. It's not. Because
I don't know.
if I'm playing,
I think in cash games, if say that everyone follows the same line of thinking that you guys are on, and Rob Gronkowski does what he does last week and gets he had like I think 13 DraftKings points, something like that.
No, he had 17 DraftKings points.
Okay, so he gets 80 yards and a touchdown like he does every single week because he's literally the best player I think at the position ever. And so he goes out and does that, and then everyone else in my head-to-head games takes Robert Griffin's tight end or Kobe Fleener or whoever, and those guys get 2 catches for 40 yards. And they take Luck, and Luck throws for 4 touchdowns and 330 yards. That's, 32 points, some around there.
Sure, yeah, let's just say
whatever.
30.
And I get 22 from Sanchez. I have more points just off those 2 spots.
Right, but there's the assumption that the cheap tight end that someone's using is not going to produce when there's a guy like Martellus Bennett, for instance, that's $4,000, and B, you're assuming production from Sanchez, which we saw last week is going to be a sweat, and you're also assuming that all right, we'll just assume that Gronk puts up like 80 and a touch, but I think that there's just some assumptions there that you can't choose a cheap tight end that produces. Period.
Listen, I know that it's possible. I know that the probability of predicting tight end performance is a lot harder to do than predicting the probability of quarterback performance.
For sure. Yeah, without a doubt. It's not even close.
So that's why this conversation is like crazy to me. Is like no one would argue that Tennessee is good at all. They're probably the worst team outside of the Raiders. Awful coached.
Right.
And I think the most encouraging thing is that regardless of the score, whether they are blowing another team out or losing by 20, Chip has had Sanchez out there gunning in the second half for touchdowns.
Right. I would say like I think the thing that I'm struggling with is like what has changed with your philosophy of paying up for quarterbacks in cash games this week as opposed to last? Is it just because pricing's tighter?
Pricing is a little tighter. Like I said, Luck historically has just needed a lot of volume to be good in terms of fantasy points. Like he's needed to throw a lot. Like if you look at his fantasy points per attempt, like it's just not it's not great.
Right, but he's also thrown 34 more times per game this year, and it's not like and he loses a fairly effective running back. Like there's more reason to believe that he's going to
a fairly effective running back in the pass game. I don't know. Like I just really feel like paying a premium for Luck this week is unnecessary. I think that Rodgers has similar concerns in terms of volume.
They're all the same. They're all the same risks. They're all the same risks, and Luck is much more safer because he's a higher percentage of the team's offensive touchdowns.
Yeah, like I said, I'm never going to say the top quarterbacks are a bad play. I just think this week with a little bit tighter of a cap and really what's causing me to do this is a lack of mid-range wide receivers that I like. Like Jordan Matthews was 5.5 on FanDuel last week, and I had him and Benjamin. Well, this week Kelvin Benjamin's not in the slate. So
it's stirring everyone up, to be honest.
Yeah, like that is why I'm put in this situation. Kelvin Benjamin not being in the slate because he's on a bye week is why I've shifted from paying up a quarterback down to Sanchez.
So here's the other interesting thing, though, Davis. Indianapolis has won 3 games by more than 24 points this year.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Luck in those 3 games has averaged 41 pass attempts.
Yeah, like a million pass attempts.
The concern for volume is just confusing because it's based on no precedent.
Yeah, no, I'm not concerned about the volume. I'm saying he has to have that volume to be good, where I would prefer Sanchez's volume. Like Sanchez has thrown 2 touchdowns every single time he stepped on the field.
He's been on the field twice.
No, he did it in the league too.
Every single time.
In a half, he threw 2 touchdowns.
Right. Okay, 2.5. I understand. I'm not saying I think of cheap Why don't we just talk about other quarterback options and stuff then?
Sanchez is awesome, by the way, and I'll probably have a lot of Sanchez. I'm just arguing.
No, keep trolling. No, keep trolling me, dude.
Andrew Luck,
keep telling me about how the Indianapolis offense that we haven't seen all season. Like, and you're also trusting Bortles to not throw pick sixes. Also,
I mean, it's not like he's going to throw 8.
He might have 2. He very easily could throw 2.
And they'll still throw the ball based on
Yeah,
precedent.
it's the Colts.
Like,
I don't know. They don't have Dwayne Allen. They don't have Ahmad Bradshaw. I don't know what it's going to look like.
Let's talk about other guys.
Whatever. I don't care. Let's talk more about Charles Johnson.
Oh god.
Let's talk more about how Kelvin Benjamin has been the most valuable player.
Right,
in all of
right.
daily
Like that's
fantasy
the whole reason that everything in DFS this week is screwed up.
It's
I was going to tweet
screwed
because everyone just uses Kelvin every week, and it just makes everything awesome.
Yeah, and no Le'Veon Bell is like that elite
Right.
running back who's underpriced. It's like it's really
It
it's screwing up
sucks.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I don't know.
sucks.
Who do you want to talk about, Drew? You probably like Phillip Rivers. You're probably on Rivers this week.
no, not on Rivers at all.
I just
My
want to be as
quarterback break-
derisive as possible to you about some player you like.
Let's see. Let me find somebody. Oh, I like McCoy. There, go ahead. Have at it.
Me too. I love
Have
him.
at me, Hoss.
I love
no,
him.
he's a good play. Like he's somehow gonna be a really good play and end up with 80 combo yards and not a touchdown.
No, there's no way against that defense that he doesn't perform. Like there is no way.
Oh, I will tell you a way. He's terrible.
No, dude. There's no way. Did you see
the way is LaShawn McCoy treating the game like a giant game of Frogger again, and him just like running side to side, like waiting for a moment to move forward and then falling down.
Right.
Like that's the way. We've seen it.
Oh, absolutely. But like this matchup is so gold, it's not even funny. Le'Veon Bell.
That was the Carolina matchup, and he like had to like get like a garbage like fourth quarter touchdown to like save his day.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I don't know.
Like, I'm not putting stock into last week just because Green Bay's played better defense at home. But yeah, the Carolina argument's a good one to make. But he also I mean the frustrating part is he also could have easily had a couple touchdowns in that game. It's just that they rotate close to the goal line. Did I get cut off there?
No.
You want a hot take?
Yeah.
Trey Mason over LaShawn McCoy.
Straight up?
That's
No,
piping
like
hot.
dollars per point. Like I think he'll be a better value. McCoy's gonna score a touchdown in this game. That's you got to give him like a 70% probability of scoring a touchdown in this game.
I mean, he has converted 2 of his 32 red zone opportunities into touchdowns.
Oh my
this year, so.
God! How is seriously even outside the offensive line? How has he been this bad?
Yeah,
I'm not going to sit down and watch Eagles film to watch him look like an idiot. But like seriously, that's
yeah. Because
so
if you do watch Eagles film, you might see some stuff on Mark Sanchez you don't want to see. So
I wrote this in my column. Mark Sanchez is exactly the same quarterback he was with the Jets. He's going to make a ton of bad decisions. He's going to turn the ball over a lot. But Chip Kelly has the wide receivers running routes where he can make the throws, and he's making quick decisions, which sometimes results in very quick interceptions. But like if it was just listed as Chip Kelly's quarterback for his price tag, you would take it.
Oh, I'm gonna use Sanchez this week.
Yeah,
I
I
have a
am
question
too.
for you.
He's the guy that I'm gonna use. I was just giving you a hard time about Luck.
If Matt Barkley was the starter this week for minimum salary, would you use him?
No.
No. No, I would not.
No, you know who I do like that's super cheap this week is Mettenberger.
Get
Oh,
stopped.
boy.
No, not as a cash play, obviously, but which I'm not trying to cop out by saying he's just tourney play. But 8 of the 10 quarterbacks that have faced Philly this year ended as QB1s, and it's a top 12 in season long, but that's still like 17 plus fantasy points. 8 of the 10, and that includes 4 quarterbacks who aren't even starting for their teams anymore. Just throwing it out there, Mettenberger.
Yeah, well, I mean, he has to throw to Justin Hunter, who is.
I mean, that's fine.
For most of my anguish this season.
That's fine.
If
Chad
Justin
Henne-
Hunter just been good.
Chad Henne, Kirk Cousins, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Austin Davis were all QB1s against Philadelphia this year.
Don't you dare besmirch the name of Chad Henne, the savior of the Jaguars franchise.
Yeah. I'm just saying, I really like Mettenberger, and then I like Kaepernick, too, this week against
No,
Washington.
I don't even register that as an option anymore. He's just
The
so.
same- If Sanchez didn't, well, the thing is, he's actually not volatile. He's just,
Right.
he's not, he hasn't been good.
Right.
He's been very consistent, just very consistently poor. He has 1 touchdown or less, well, exactly 1 touchdown in 70% of his games, which is the problem. If Sanchez didn't exist, Kaepernick would be the guy that I would be considering alongside the elite quarterbacks.
Yeah,
but Sanchez exists, so Kaepernick's not a guy. So
if Sanchez didn't exist, I would probably have to rethink my Gronkowski strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what I said. If you're playing an elite quarterback, it's really difficult to feel good about your lineup if you're using that elite quarterback in Gronk.
Yeah, let's talk about cheap running backs. I'm gonna let Dink have the enviable job of touting Trent Richardson.
Well, I mean, you all know my affection for Eddie Lacy.
You love it.
Trent Richardson is just a way, way worse Eddie Lacy, which makes for a great daily fantasy play somehow. So the thing that helps Richardson is he's going to get held up by receptions, and that's going to be a huge, huge boon to his floor. And then he's going to get goal line looks. So if you pencil him in for 4 receptions, he's probably going to turn those 4 receptions into at least 30 yards. I mean, that's not a great high-end expectation. He's probably going to add 50 to 60 in the rushing game. That's 90 yards, 4 receptions. That's 11 FanDuel points, 13 DraftKings points. If he falls his fat behind into a touchdown, it's a really good day. So, and that's kind of where I'm at with a 32.5 team total. I'll take that chance at those low prices.
Yeah, I agree.
He's totally gonna fat guy score a touchdown. Like his pants are gonna come off as he's crossing the goal line.
I hope so. He's not good. Like he's not good around the goal line. So like I hope he falls into one. But I do think
he's really good at catching passes though. Like I was looking at his stuff on PFR while I was writing him up today. He's a better pass catcher for his career than LaShawn McCoy. Like catches a higher percentage of his targets and gains more yards per reception than Shady.
because the biggest thing with Richardson is he runs like a blind person. Like he has no idea where holes are. So when you actually when he's catching the ball, usually he has a clear field of vision ahead of him. He's not behind a line. So that's why he's so much more productive catching the ball. And I think removing Bradshaw from the discussion just puts a floor of 4 catches on him.
Right.
So I think he's fairly safe.
How tilting is it going to be when Dan Herron has 200 yards and 2 touchdowns?
It would be pretty tilting, but I feel like we'll get a better report as the week goes on.
We'll get. It's a point you made to me about. This is really good point that I've never thought of, but guys that you aren't certain of playing time stuff, like checking their props Sunday morning, is always a really good thing to do. That's definitely something to do with Josh Gordon. Is if his player prop in the morning is 110 yards and he's minus 120 to score, then that would tell us what Vegas and the bettors in Vegas think that Gordon is going to do. All right, cheap running back.
That's the first thing I'm going to be doing. That's the first thing I'm going to do on Sunday morning is look for a Vegas prop on Gordon because I don't feel like I have a great handle on it.
Mm-hmm. Cheap running back, JJ.
I'm into Crowell this week, as I'm sure everyone else is. I think it's really going to be really interesting that everyone's just only on Crowell, but Terrence West could easily out-attempt him this weekend. I mean, it's going to be probably close to a 50-50 split, and he's actually cheaper on DraftKings. But I just like Crowell because he's more effective. And that change of when Alex Mack got hurt, it didn't affect Crowell as much as it's affected Terrence West. So I think, Crowell is probably the play there. I like Trey Mason at 4,200 on DraftKings. And then these aren't necessarily cheap guys, but kind of in that McCoy range. I really like C.J. Anderson this week. If you look at who's beaten Miami, which running backs have, that's usually pass-catching backs. And if they end up – and not only that, but Miami obviously has the best pass defense in the league. They're probably going to run the ball against them, which their rush defense is good, but it's mostly average. And if you look at guys who have had success against Miami this season, you have a guy like Matt Forte who caught a lot of balls against them. He caught 6. You had Shane Vereen had 5 against them. Bryce Brown caught 7 passes against them. So you can really open that up. And Manning obviously checks down to his running backs. And if C.J. Anderson is the only guy in that backfield, that's going to be unbelievable.
Yeah. So I'm on board with all of that. I just really don't feel it necessary to spend up at running back this week. There are what we just listed, there are 5 good cheap options, whereas there are almost no good cheap wide receiver options. Speaking specifically FanDuel, there are good cheap options on DraftKings.
So JJ, would you use Mason in a cash game?
I don't know. Like, probably not, just because Crowell's there. And my approach this week is mostly, I think that you can fit in those two mid range guys, like a McCoy and Anderson with a Crowell, or even if you want to just throw Crowell in at RB, because I like Crowell more than Mason straight up. So I'm not going to throw both of them in a cash, but. I mean, I'm not necessarily against it. If he sees the volume he did last week, the only thing that's really holding him back is that he's only scored one touchdown during the stretch that he's, been getting volume.
That's exactly how Jeff Fisher wants it. He wants to kick 9 field goals a game.
Yeah, exactly.
See, that's my thing with him, is that I think if the game stays close, he's going to be great. He's going to pay off his tag. And fortunately, San Diego hasn't really run away from anybody, and the spread's pretty tight. I think it's like 5.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of factors that are in favor of the game staying somewhat tight. But if they get down 2 scores, what happens? Like, That's my concern with Trey Mason. If they get down 2 scores, suddenly you have a 10 for 48 on your hands and nothing else. Yeah. And that's tough to overcome in a cash game.
Right. Yeah, that's
kind of. You like Mason a lot. You like Mason a lot this week, so talk me through your perspective on that.
I mean, I just think that he won't come off the field. Like, Zach Stacy, didn't even play a snap last week. Benny Cunningham doesn't really profile as a guy who's going to be great at catching passes. San Diego's defense is really bad. Like I don't think people understand how bad San Diego's defense is. They're way down on DVOA. I have it pulled up. Let me see exactly where they are. San Diego is the 31st defense by adjusted DVOA. I think Sean Hill is he's Alex Smith. He's like a super game manager. He's constructed to not turn the ball over and not let the game get out of control. So I expect the rushing volume to be there. And I feel like for 4,200 on DraftKings, that's a really favorable price tag for a guy who's going to see 80 to 85% of a team's carries and does have an outside shot at a touchdown. In terms of pass catching, that stuff is always disappointing when you find a running back that doesn't catch very many passes. It wasn't really a skill that he displayed at Auburn, although he did have 4 receptions against Arizona. And if he gets 4 for 30 in the air,
okay a few weeks ago.
What?
Yeah, then he's locked. If he gets 3 catches, he's great.
Right.
But my concern is, if they get down 2 touchdowns, do you think he's on the field, or do you think Benny Cunningham's on the field?
I would still think Mason would be on the field. I just feel like
then
it's just one of those things where the organization invested capital in him. They benched the other starter for him. Effectively, Zach Stacy doesn't even exist anymore for all those people who spent 3rd-round draft picks on him in seasonal leagues. I don't know why I didn't ever like Zach Stacy. I don't know why you're shaking your head at me.
What?
He was a complete default pick.
I've just lost 2 hours of my life searching through G-Chat logs tonight. Oh my God, the Zach Stacy things you told me.
Okay, here's the thing.
My God.
Also probably lost $30 or $40 in NFL 10s as a result.
Oh my God.
I mean, we're not doing this right now. You and I can argue about this off air. We're not doing this right now. All right.
Go on. Keep telling me to draft Justin Hunter ahead of Manny Sanders, and tell me that you don't understand why people are saying it's a bad year for your wide receiver analysis.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing that everyone else predicted that Janis was going to make the Packers 53. It's a good thing that everyone was all over that take.
Nice.
Yeah, no, and I just think and the list keeps going. Today, Norv came out and was like, "Nope, Jerick McKinnon is our running back because Matt Asiata has a concussion and is probably not going to play."
So are you going to play? Are you playing McKinnon this week?
Oh, I can't, just because I've built myself into such a hole with him.
It's so tough it's really tough. I understand the Charles Johnson take only because of how that game script could go and just the sheer volume that he could get if those two.
I mean, you realize this is the week that McKinnon scores an 80-yard touchdown.
Oh, I know it's going to happen. But it's just that offense is such a dumpster fire in fantasy. It's so hard to trust. And he's not scoring touchdowns. And he's scoring single-digit points every single week.
Yeah. All right. Well, can we talk about before we're done? I want to talk about all of the wide receivers in the Bears-Tampa Bay game because I think we'll probably all have different opinions on who is viable and who is preferred. So I'm going to let JJ go first on the wide receivers in that game. And then I'll let Drew go, and then I'll just make some terrible point, and everyone in chat can be like, "Oh, Drew's such an idiot," and then we can move on.
I mean, I think the most important point to start with is that that game is projected to have horrific wind right now. So, like, if you're setting Thursday lock FanDuel lineups, take that into consideration. You know, obviously we'll know more on Sunday, but I don't know if you want to be getting involved in Thursday lock games, especially in cash games, with a game that could be horrific wind in a city that's known for it.
Yeah.
The Windy City.
What do we have to say? I mean, there's Alshon B. Marsh and Mike Evans. Like, you're not playing VJax, are you?
I think he's viable.
There you go.
You like VJax?
Under perfect weather conditions, I think he's viable.
Dude, VJax isn't even alive anymore. VJax has some of the most worthless 91 targets in the history of organized football.
It's tough.
I agree with that. But at some point, defenses are going to start rolling all the coverage towards
Evans.
Fair.
That's true.
And any analysis that starts with "at some point" needs to be taken with like a salt shaker.
No, that some point should be now after he has 5 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks.
I mean, what is Kyle Fuller going to do against Mike Evans?
The Bears are basically a group of clowns running around on defense.
Yeah, it's
like they're like totally unorganized. Like there's just guys running wide open in the secondary. Like, I mean, even Charles Johnson put up like 6 for 80 against them last week.
Yeah, so even Charles Johnson did. No, I mean, he's getting volume, and that's obviously what matters. He didn't necessarily have it last week, but he has, 5? I'm looking now. He has 5 double-digit target games. But
the great thing is,
he is the Trent Richardson of tall wide receivers.
He is. He has 23 deep targets according to Pro Football Focus this year, of which he's caught 4.
Yeah, that's terrible.
4. So I mean, maybe this week he catches one.
Yeah, I think Evans.
I can't.
I literally think what I said on Twitter was that I think Mike Evans is going to put his Scrotus and Kyle Fuller.
Yeah, that's what you said.
like Jordy Nelson, the game that Jordy Nelson had against Kyle Fuller in the Bears defense is kind of what I'm envisioning from Evans. It's just like he's going to there's definitely going to be one deep ball that Mike Evans catches where the Bears cornerback and safety run into each other and fall down. Yeah. Like that is, and like the thing is that McCown is not good. Like McCown is definitively bad at NFL quarterbacking, but what he does do is he degaffs, he just hucks the ball up there and lets Evans go do his thing.
Right. Like
he doesn't care about turning the ball over, which is I think important in this game because I do expect them to trail because I also think, there's the Bears, for all their faults, are still pretty good on offense, and Vegas thinks that they're going to win. Yeah, I don't know. Evans is going to do stuff this week. We might see Mike Evans' first double-digit target game, the elusive double-digit target game.
That would be impressive. I mean, last week was like the first. I think it was the first week there was a meaningful discrepancy away from Jackson.
Right.
But it was only like the 3rd time all season that Jackson has had less targets than Evans. Now, granted, Jackson's been terrible, and this is the same Andre Johnson, DeAndre Hopkins discussion that we've been having for 3 or 4 weeks.
Every week.
Which I've agreed with you on, but the difference is now that there's a huge difference in price tag between the two. So, like, if I'm up in the Mike Evans territory, I'd rather just pay up for Jordy or Demarius, and there's less options that I'm competing against in the Vincent Jackson price territory that I consider Jackson.
Don't you think Mike Evans probably sees more targets than Jordy this week? Like, for real? Like,
no. Jordy's averaging 13 a game, Davis.
Okay, but what about when they're? I'll go look it up when they're like crazy favorites because like Rodgers is basically he's one of the wizards from Clash of Clans right now. He's just throwing fireballs from his hand directly into the end zone.
I think in your like subconscious you have that other Minnesota game stuck in your head. Like
I do, yeah, absolutely. But it's not the only time that's happened.
Defensive touchdown, like that game was so beyond sloppy that I don't think
they're also on the road.
Right,
week.
Right,
like
totally.
Like it's tougher to blow teams out on the road than it is at home. So like I don't know, like I don't think it's an unreasonable opinion to suggest that the guy that's averaging 13 targets a game is going to see more targets than the guy who has never seen 13 targets a game. That seems like a pretty reasonable take.
I'm not telling you that you're being unreasonable.
What about
I'm not saying that. I just think there are some game flow concerns for Jordy.
What are you feeling about with T.Y. Hilton's price point, especially on DraftKings right now?
I don't.
After his bad week.
Why would you ask me?
I don't look at him.
That's so insensitive, dude. That's so insensitive, JJ. After I'm having a tough week, dude.
No, I'm serious. I mean, like his price point's really, really attractive right now. It's 7,600. He's been one of the best wide receivers in the game this year.
It's still 2 times Justin Hunter's price tag that I drafted. Justin Hunter had a T.Y. Hilton.
I wasn't high on
T.Y. 2 times
into the season, but I like Hilton. I like Hilton at his price point a lot on DraftKings.
Neat.
That's the other thing. Like I view the situation as losing Allen and Bradshaw is just going to condense the opportunities to the other good player. I don't know if I can even pluralize that around Luck, which is T.Y. Hilton.
Right.
So I think he's in a good spot this week. I've got him ahead of Mike Evans in my individual rankings.
Right. Like that, but that too is another I don't think what about like I understand it's Demaryius, but like is there any concern from you guys about the matchup?
For who?
For Demaryius in general, just the fact that
I'm concerned for the Dolphins.
Right, I understand.
No.
What I'm saying is
Demaryius is Thor, dude. Like it doesn't matter.
I understand. I understand that he's matchup proof, but at the same time, like Miami stops the pass better than any team in the NFL, and if he's the most expensive wide receiver out there this week, is there any hesitation to use another alternative like a T.Y. Hilton, who's $1,200 cheaper on DraftKings, or $1,100 cheaper than paying up for Demaryius?
Any efficiency concern to me would be wiped out by volume with Sanders and Thomas not in the lineup. Like
that I think is the key for this matchup is that is the fact that Sanders and Thomas are either going to be not 100% or won't play, and I think that
and he's the best wide receiver in football. So.
I agree. I'm only
you are on board with Team DT.
This is the same thing with the Gronk stuff. I ask questions about this stuff, and then it makes it sound like I'm a Demaryius hater.
Yeah, no, I know. No, like I actually do think that is like a legitimate concern. But yeah, like I don't know if you give Demaryius. Well, and I did some math while I was writing my thing, and so for his career, Demaryius Thomas scores .11 touchdowns per reception. But this season, he's scoring .08 touchdowns per reception, so he's due for a little bit of positive regression in terms of touchdown scoring this season. So I think there are a lot of reasons to roster him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I just wanted to hear like how you guys were approaching it, just because like the matchup is tough in general.
Yeah, I would still take him above Jordy. I still have DT as my number 1 wide receiver. I just think the floor for Demaryius is just so incredibly high. He hasn't scored in 4 weeks, and he's still been like 20 DraftKings points every week. It's really incredible.
That's Antonio Brown's game, man. You can't claim consistency for a big guy. Not fair. Got to leave Antonio Brown something.
I mean, to be fair, Davis, Antonio Brown's on it.
He's been better. Listen, no hate for me. I'm a very sad and angry person about football this year, and I need to lash out whenever possible. I'm very bitter about what Twitter has done to me.
I would be too.
Oh, right, because you're the victim here.
There's no victimizing here. Anyone who has ever fucked with me on Twitter has gotten vengeance X5.
It's unbelievable.
That they've been blocked.
To be honest, I didn't really start blocking people until the Beckham thing, and then it was all over. Like then I was like, nope, I'm done with this. Isn't fun anymore.
Do you hate Beckham this week against your boys?
Nah.
I like him actually. I really like Beckham this week.
There are like a ton of other wide receivers who I think are in good spots.
He's in a terrible price range. Is the thing that I found.
Right.
Is that I just I like him, but I'm gonna choose Sammy Watkins and Josh Gordon ahead of him on DraftKings. I'm gonna choose I think it's Marshall's moved up on FanDuel.
No,
there's somebody around him on FanDuel.
Yeah, I'm looking right now.
I don't know. I would almost rather play Stills than play Beckham.
What?
I love me some Kenny Stills.
I love Kenny Stills. You're saying at price point.
Not even price point. Just like talking about because how I construct my lineups generally is like one high-priced wide receiver and then just see where the rest of it takes me. But like almost every week, I'll have a high-priced wide receiver.
So I play. I'm looking at FanDuel. I play Watkins ahead of ODB, and I play Roddy White ahead of ODB.
Yeah, I like Roddy a lot this week too. Word.
Because Julio Jones is never scoring a touchdown again.
He's Derek Mason, bro. The Falcons have spoken. He's Derek Mason. He runs. Rich was telling me like he was watching the game and like 70% of his routes
runs slants.
Yeah,
slants and curls.
That's
like one deep shot a game. Ryan underthrows it, and we all cry.
It would literally be like I don't want to use like the Ferrari and just for grocery shopping analogy. Like there's got to be something better, but it's not coming to me right now. It would be like being friends with Drew Dinkmeyer and instead of trying to get advice on daily fantasy from him, telling him to draft Justin Hunter a lot. That's what it would be like.
Hunter's not even like. I have 45% Michael Floyd shares in MFLs and 47% Bishop Sankey. So like. Hunter is a small problem compared to the rest of the squad.
Yo, Sankey scored a touchdown last week.
He did.
Did you see that? Did you see that all up on your TV, JJ?
I've got an average.
We won.
An average price point on him of like 3.08.
Yo, the year before I took Daryl Richardson in the 3rd round. He was a game day inactive every week 3 to 15.
Yeah, that was definitely your Sankey from 2013.
No, my Sankey from 2013 was Le'Veon Bell.
Well, I'm not saying rookie to rookie. I'm saying
just saying.
Price point 3rd, 4th.
He's talking about results.
Process.
I don't
even look at results, man. I'm pure process, bro.
Pure process.
Also, you know who's going to be in like every single one of my cash lineups on DraftKings this week?
Who?
Anquan Bolden.
Oh, shocked.
Yeah, I like Bolden too.
A 97-year-old wide receiver.
No, but seriously, Bolden is gold at his price point on
he is a good player.
50 yards or more in 7 straight.
Yeah, and he's getting
4 catches or more in 7 straight.
6
targets.
targets.
Got a 9.4.
Anquan Bolden is older than me, Drew, JJ, and David combined.
And he's historically great.
He is, yeah. Because I remember when I first started like the Vincent Brown thing, as people were like, "Yo, Anquan Bolden is good." Anquan Bolden is like the only wide receiver of the last decade to run worse than a 4.55 40 and post multiple top 30 wide receiver seasons.
Yeah,
witchcraft,
he's awesome.
man.
He's awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I agree on Bolden. The other guy that I like, especially if this game gets moved into a dome, is Percy. Percy's too cheap.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't even. What is he?
I know you're gonna hate that, Davis.
I don't. Yeah,
dude, he's a completely different fantasy wideout in New York. Completely different.
He's getting like 4 or 5 rush attempts a game. So he's getting like a guarantee of like 10 touches.
Right.
And he's 4,700 on DraftKings. He's like 663 or something like that on FanDuel. He's really cheap.
Yeah, I dig it.
Just blacked out for a second. I thought you guys were touting Percy Harvin. Okay. Well, now that we got that out of the way, I think we're
Kenny
good
Stills.
here. Kenny Stills.
Kenny Stills.
Also,
Kenny Stills.
I guarantee you, one of those Jacksonville wide receivers blows up this week. I just don't know.
Hearns or Shorts.
Yeah, I don't. I'll say Hearns.
Who's taller?
Probably Hearns, right?
It's probably Hearns.
Yeah,
he's just a lot slower.
Shorts is a little fella. I actually think it's probably Hearns because Hearns will wiggle his way loose for 3 deep balls. He'll drop 2 of them but catch 1 of them.
Yeah, Vontae might take more shorts.
Vontae loves shorts.
We'll see what happens. But I do think that one of those Jacksonville wideouts is going to have a game.
All right.
I can see that for sure.
That'll do it for us. Once we get to the Allen Hearns talk.
One last take for you. Manny Sanders is out. Julius Thomas is out. Let's operate on that assumption. Wes Welker, Andre Caldwell, you playing in that fire?
You didn't list the correct answer yet.
Latimer.
Cody Latimore's not
No,
even
no,
gonna be active.
no. It's Caldwell. It's Caldwell, I think.
I'm
Because
not
he'll
really,
play.
Caldwell 3K.
He'll play Manny's role.
Would you if they're all out, would you play Caldwell at 3K on
Yes.
DK
Yes.
ahead of Charles Johnson?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, there we go.
Peyton Manning wide receiver versus Teddy Bridgewater wide receiver.
All right, some rational thought process.
Oh, I don't even want to hear it. I don't even want to hear it, Mr. Fading Josh Gordon.
How is it not? Wait.
This is gonna be my fading. This is gonna be my fading Gronk moment.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel you, JJ.
You know what's crazy, Nick? And I say this every freaking week that this comes up. I played Jared Cook that week, and he was basically just as good as Gronk.
You know what? But you faded Gronk,
Yeah,
and that's inexcusable.
Well, Tim
All
Wright.
right,
JJ?
that was my last question I had for you. Was that Denver wide receivers? You can wrap it up now.
I'm gonna let David do it. I'm tilted now.
This happens every show. You always if you have such hot takes, you have to realize that it's going to.
I'm not even tilted. I'm not even making a hot take. I put Andre 97-year-old Caldwell over one of my favorite players in the league. So I don't want to hear it.
He's not tilted.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Well, just remember that.
You know why I'm not tilted?
Yeah. Just remember that Davis is the victim in all of this.
I'm always the victim. I'm younger than you guys. You guys shouldn't pick on me.
Special thanks to JJ Zacharyson, aka Late Round QB. Can catch he and his comedy takes on Twitter at Late Round QB. Also,
I thought you were gonna plug Living the Stream real quick.
Okay.
Heck yeah, man. Check it out. Living the Stream podcast, lateroundqb.com.
It's something.
Must listen every week.
Hey, it's fun.
It's something. You should take that and just apply it to the opening.
Yeah.
I only like Darter.
Thanks, man.
Kenny Darter.
I don't know. They've been on a pretty darn good roll with the streaming quarterback.
Dude,
We're
they
at-
have the QB4.
McCown last week.
Yeah, we had McCown last week. We're at QB4 now on the season, so we're ahead of Breeze. So we gotta stick it out for 5-6 more weeks, and we'll be really solid.
Are you guys on Sanchez this week?
I went on the show earlier today on that Fantasy Network show, and I touted McCown just because Sanchez is owned in too many leagues. So McCown's the guy again this week. I mean, we'll see what happens. The weather scares the hell out of me now,
Wow.
but we'll see.
It's probably the first time I've heard JJ name drop like that. But whatever.
I can name drop. Can we just go on a name dropping spree real quick?
Nope. Drew Dinkmeyer from the Roto Experts Daily Fantasy Rundown, where Leone, and can I say Chris Pacheco is part of the team now too?
I mean, he's been part of the team for 5 months, so I guess so.
I just want you to know that you should worry. Pacheco and I have been communicating a fair amount recently.
No. The Matic virus is already infected most of the road. No. Stop texting.
I thought his nickname was going to be Paplinko.
Paplinko.
Good
Could have a
stuff.
stern conversation with that young man.
Yeah, no kidding.
And Davis Maddock. Davis obviously writes the automatic the automatic absolutes column on Fantasy Insiders. Davis is the defense whisperer, and he's got a lot of things right. One thing Davis did not get right last week, though, was he told me that Jordan Matthews was not a price play on DraftKings at 4,500. Remember that, Davis?
Yep. I don't know. I did call Jordan Matthews the best wide receiver in that class 2 years ago.
Right.
So I don't really know who won this conversation or not.
I mean, come on.
The people who said Mike Evans, those are the ones who won.
It's not over. I think they have the same amount of touchdowns.
Davis,
Hey, you know who has more touchdowns than Cam Newton this year? Derek Carr.
Ouch.
You know who has a better offensive line?
Oh,
Derek
boy.
Carr. You know who has a better coach? Derek Carr. You know who has better wide receivers? Derek Carr.
And that will do it for today's show. Special thanks again to Davis, Drew, and JJ. Catch us tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern, Insiders TV. FantasyInsiders.com/TV will also be on YouTube, youtube.com/FantasyInsiders, and on iTunes. Just search for Fantasy Insiders. That will do it, guys. Thanks. We'll see you later.